All right, thank you for attending Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 102. That's my dog playing with his toy, and I'm happy to let him play so he wears himself out instead of making me wear myself out to try to wear him out because he is a ball of energy. With that said, we do have a guest who's been on once before but did not do an introduction. Mr. Grant, would you like to tell us all about your slot car related history from when you first started playing with slot cars to what you're doing these days?
Sure. I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, very central Mississippi. We've been here 2 years. We were in near Baton Rouge prior to that for 30 years. My history dates back to Christmases, and my mom and dad would reluctantly buy me slot car sets, even that was high on my list. And so I had some buddies that had them, and I always went to their house and spent more time on their slot cars than with them sometimes. And we got to early marriage, and I got an HO set. Well, I did an engineering degree, and we went to South Florida, and we had racing down there in the Palm Beach Gardens area. And that was, let's see, mid 80s, I would say. And then in 2017, we started getting a little closer to retirement money. And I invested in a Carrera. Let's see if I can show it. Let's see, are y'all seeing that?
Yep, we see what you see.
Yeah, let's see, I've lost it. Where am I? Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Nice.
So, I've got 20 grand, I suppose, in it, and got about 90 cars, and just fulfilling my childhood dream. And I've got all makes of cars. I've been running magnet, and I'm leaning towards going off of magnet. I'm on basically my first trial of that so far. And my times have gone without bodies from 5.5 seconds to 9 seconds. So, I'm gonna be beating on you guys along here and there and on the forum to see what all I need to do as far as waiting is concerned. I've got that chat going on the HRW forum already.
What's your username on HRW?
Paratoro.
All right, Mr. Paratoro. Definitely familiar with that conversation. You're doing lots of good things with your cars already. I know that. My wife and I both went to Mississippi State. So Paratoro is a rough Latin form of bulldog. So we're the bulldog. So that makes sense now.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope you can stick around and come back often.
I will.
All right. Anybody else new that I'm not seeing, John? I know you got your eagle eye on the list. You're shaking your head. I'll assume we're good. And just so everybody has recognized this, Russ is here. So he might not be talking all the time, but he's there. He's on my.
I'm here.
Russ is alive and well and has rejoined us for today. As usual, we will start off with show and tell. So if you have something you would like to show and or tell, please raise your virtual hand so I don't miss you. And we'll ask you to wave your real hand later on. Before we get to show and tell, however, I do want to do a couple of quick notes for people who are watching this on YouTube. If you want to join one of these chats so that you can be here, whether you have your camera and microphone on or not, you can use a text chat to ask live questions or just participate. Use Google or whatever your favorite search engine is these days to Google Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom. Ignore the video results because every other result is going to be a lead to a forum or a Facebook post where I have been posting the invitations every week, usually Monday or Tuesday at the latest, so that you know what time on Wednesday the next meeting is going to occur and the link to go to the meeting. So all you got to do is hit that link at the right time and you'll be joined to the chat. You don't need a special direct invitation. You don't need to ask me, hey, Greg, how do I get on the chat? You don't need to do anything other than Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, enter, and then do some clicking. Yeah, so I've got some show and tell, but I'll let Frank go first because he had his virtual hand up. What you got today, Frank?
You a piano player or what?
I did some in the past, yeah.
Well, I wanted to show everybody the final result of what I started showing last week. This is the 2G via John Dilworth in New Zealand sending a resin body to Dennis Sampson, who I was able to ask, and he sent it to John Kitt, who did the casting, mold and casting. Am I right there, John? Mold and cast.
Yep.
And this is my final result.
Absolutely lovely.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous.
Thank you. And somebody last week had asked about the screws underneath being pretty long, but actually it works just fine on the track. So that's
Well, it's a wonderful culmination of a group effort. That's just lovely, lovely, Frank.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John Dilworth is in the UK, Frank.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was in New Zealand.
No, that's John Warren, you're thinking of.
Probably.
The other guy who does. For those who don't know John Dilworth, he's not really involved in slot cars at the moment much at all because his his real occupation is he's a luthier.
What?
A luthier, Luthier.
Makes guitars.
No, he makes
Miniature guitars.
he makes violas specifically
Oh,
and
wow.
violins.
Wow.
And he is one of the world's leading craftsmen in that environment. When I visited him some years back, he actually had a Stradivari in his workshop for restoration. So
Wow.
the guy is a legend in that environment. And then on top of it, he likes slot cars, and he did a lot of resin castings, but they were all slush castings. He didn't get to the point that John has got with double-sided molds and all that fancy stuff. But the other thing that John Dilworth did is he developed a vacuum forming system, and he's been doing creating the molds and doing vacuum formings for quite a while. We called it the Bodies for Beer company, and because he never sold them, he would always just give them away, and buy me a beer. So Bodies for Beer was what he did. He still makes quite a few. He supports the British Retro Racing Association quite a lot, and he makes some pretty nice stuff. Very nice fella.
So Dennis, that's why the windshield for the 2E was so good. It was really nicely formed.
Yeah, he developed his own little vacuum forming system at home. They were pretty rough to start with, but they got pretty good later on. And he did a lot of back pours for us. I managed to find a collection of old select body shells from way back in the 60s, a bunch of them in their original butyrate, sent them to him, and he created molds and pulled them in PETG and Lexan for us. So that was nice. Anyway, that's the story. Frank, your car looks wonderful.
Thank you.
I didn't know that Hap Sharp ever drove that car, but if you wanted Jim Hall to drive it, you need a little bit of silver paint for his helmet.
Silver on his helmet.
Silver helmet with a white peak.
Okay.
If it's Jim Hall, if it's Hap Sharp, then a white helmet with a white peak would be right. But I don't know that he ever drove the 2G.
I knew someone would correct me somewhere on it. So
well, I didn't want to correct you so much as just make a suggestion that there's, it's your car. You can do what you like with it, and I think you've done a magic job with it. It really looks good.
Thank you.
Are those Chaparral slotted Chaparral inserts wheels?
No, they are from I think they're a John Warren cap.
Okay.
Got from him a while back.
All
Inserts.
Right.
Yeah.
Did a nice job of those.
They turned out good.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you. And I have one more. My 132nd Sportsman's entry into the HRW SummerSlam this summer in July. There's going to be 3 classes in that: 132nd Sportsman, 132nd Modified, and 125th class as well. But this is my entry. And first time I've ever done a roll bar like that in there.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I cheated though. That's a pre-made Molmar and a pre-made driver from Scolectric's Trans Am.
Yeah.
And
And underneath.
very
Ah,
very simple chassis. No floating pans, none of that. Most of the guys I've seen use square tubing as their rails instead of wire. I wanted to use wire. And it zips around my track pretty well. We'll just see how it does on the oval.
it looks great.
Frank, what body is that, Frank?
That is a AMT snap together. 1/32 scale 57 Chevy. From, I don't know how, from 2012 or something like that, something old. But
Nice. Well, the wire should give you a bit of flex in the chassis, no?
Well, it would if I didn't solder the
The solid. Yeah.
the pans to it like that.
Looks good though.
Thank you. Yeah,
Nice bracket in there too.
And then real quick,
The wheels can go beyond the tires can go beyond the wheel wells.
in this, yes, Dewan, in this particular class, they can, because it's reminiscent of the racers back in the 1950s that did that. And the modifieds are the ones without any fenders at all, motor showing, and no bumpers or anything. I'm in contact with a guy named Strange Brew, part of the HRW forum. He does, and that car will be part of the Strange Brew modified class. And that I'll show here in a couple of weeks. And also just real quick, the start of my 125th. This is going to be my 125th entry. And it's just the wired.
And that's a Willis, the body?
Yeah, it's an old 41 Willys. It's a drag car, but I'm going to use it anyway. An oval. And if this one though, the wheels stay underneath.
Okay.
But you can find out about that series on the HRW forum. I found it looking at the homeracingworld.us. And he has some Harry has some videos explaining all the rules and everything for that.
I gathered everything to enter in one of those proxies before and just didn't get a chance to complete it. It was the one that was the beginning of the year.
Oh, that one. Okay, well, later for this one then.
I'll see if I can get around to it.
Yeah, it's fun. I kind of, this is a follow-up. I showed that one yellow and black Camaro that I did a while back, which was his Brass Am Challenge. And after I did that one, and that one was pretty successful, why not join this one this year?
Cool.
July.
That's good.
Now we know why I haven't seen you for a while.
Busy.
You've been hiding away in his garage building chassis. Looks great.
Thank you.
Well done.
And Harry just announced another showdown of some kind for next year. Actually, of some kind, 63 to 73 Carrera or which a monogram stock cars.
Yeah, I did see that.
Next year. He's busy setting all these up. That's it for me. Thanks, sir.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Frank. Does anybody have any questions or suggestions for Frank before we move on to another?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, not so much for Frank, but for everybody. Anybody know of a 57 Ford 1/32 scale model that I could use for a body?
Mark?
Oh, there's a Revell multi-piece that
Right.
is pretty popular and easy to get.
Oh, okay.
It's a Fairlane, I think.
Yeah, that'd be fine. I've sort of given over to collecting my my first series of cars that I got. So I've got an Opel, a Renault, and a 57 Ford. Those would be the three that I had at first when I was under 20.
I can go get the box if you want once show and tell's over to show you if you like.
Okay, well, whenever, as long as I know it's available, I'll search for it.
And
Just
Mike,
happen to.
Mike, thank you for saying that. I lied. This is not a AMT. This is a snap together, not an AMT.
Would you say Revell?
Revell?
This is actually a Revell. Yeah.
As long as it's not a Gunzi Sanjo, because those things are beautiful and it'd be terrible to tear the wheels out.
Sure. Beautiful and expensive. This was $5 plus shipping. I stole it because I never saw any others for less than 30 or 40 bucks. So
I'm assuming that's the actual.
there it is.
From 79. Do they make one more recent? Do they make it more recently and get it for cheaper than that, or is that?
No,
that's too bad.
that's a pretty good price for that.
For an actual vintage model that's still sealed from the factory, heck yeah.
Oh yeah.
You just saved me a trip to the workshop. Thanks, Greg.
Who did share that? It wasn't me.
Oh, who did?
It was me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whoever that was, I couldn't see. Anyway, okay, so thanks for sharing, Frank, and we got that question answered. Next up on my screen is Mr. Wilkinson. Take it away, Alan.
Okay, let me make sure I'm not on mute. Okay.
You're good.
Good afternoon, good evening, guys. You saw this a couple of weeks ago. This is the Batmobile Polar Lights. Now, one of the things about this when I'm doing this is that I just don't do interiors. So I gave this to one of my colleagues at London Slot Car, and I don't know if you can really see.
Dewan, are you drooling?
Yes, I am.
That Batman looks really detailed.
Yeah.
Even you can see, even I gave this to Steve Carter at London Slot Car. He even painted on the Bat logo on his chest.
I see that.
And he also made up a steering wheel out of piano wire. That I'm just astounded. You know, I'm putting it at this angle because I don't think there's any other angle you could see it. But it's just astounding. I mean, I'm looking at this. The brushwork here is amazing. I feel a bit sorry to chuck this onto the track. As part of that, he also.
Robin, oh.
Yay, Robin.
Now I had this comes with the Polar Lights, but of course it's not painted like that. And sorry, it's not really in focus very well, but maybe if I turn it around like that a little bit, you'll see it better. But yeah, really great detail. And this is the part of the hobby that I am just dreadful at. I mean, for me, interiors, they just get spray painted with a spray can and then use, I use felt tip pens or whatever, Sharpies on it. This level of detail, I never got to this.
Yeah.
So the project is progressing. I have a plan for the Batmobile to stick a red LED in the exhaust pipe here,
Yeah, cool.
which is going to be hooked up to the motor, so it will flash or it will work when the motor's under full throttle. So we'll see how that works.
Wow.
So that's a little project that's progressing quite nicely.
Which body is that, Alan?
It is the Polar Lights Batmobile.
Okay.
You might get a free trip to Vegas.
And the cool thing is that's Burt Ward's actual size.
And the other thing I've got, this might make Dennis drool. You won't drool over the body, but I went to a swap meet at Orpington this weekend, and I picked up this. And this was unexpected because I picked up two cars, and one was pretty much what I thought I was going to get. But this one was pointed out to me, and I really just had to get this car.
Oh, cool.
And this is another one of John Secchi's cars.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And if you look, I don't know if you can see the change of the reflection, but this is a hinged.
Hinged pans. Yes.
Yeah, and
lovely.
It's fun, and it's got. I think it's a Hawk motor. I'm really not.
Yeah,
sure.
it'll either be a Falcon 7 or a TSRD3 with that whole size. Probably a Falcon
Okay.
7.
Okay, well that's a good sign, sign for me. But of course, the giveaway was on the back of this car where it says John Slot Secchi.
Okay.
Someone
Cool.
pointed that out to me, and I thought, right,
Lovely.
that's going in.
And a hard body, Alan? Was it a Vacval?
It's a hard body.
Hard body.
Um,
Wow. Okay.
I have no idea why John built this car or what it was for, but I ran it around on the plastic track at London Slot Car because it has urethane tires, so it kind of works. And it's so different from driving a plastic chassis car. It's very, very heavy and luggy, but it goes. You can throw it at the corners; it just goes around the corners. It doesn't. And it also just keeps picking up speed all the way down the straight till you just chicken out and feel as though you've got to let it go.
That is nice.
That was just a nice thing to get. And,
oh, beautiful! Yeah, great that
so
it's with someone who can really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. And
wow.
I'll be going to Gaydon in a few weeks' time, and I'll be looking at the swap meet counters and seeing if I can find any more gems like this. I mean,
I'll bet you didn't get that for $5.
I got it for £40, which isn't bad.
That's a steal.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Still steal for that kind of car.
That's a steal.
That would run well at Buena Park Raceway in the
It would. Yeah, we just have to
series.
put foam tires on it, but it's nice.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I like it.
Well, Dennis, just the components alone are worth that, aren't they?
Oh, I know. The
More.
chassis built by John Secchi on its own, probably now it must be worth $100 on its own, I would say.
Yeah.
Because he built very well, and he didn't build production quantities. So that becomes a real collector's item. So I'm really glad that Alan's got it, because I'd heard that some of his stuff has ended up with people who really don't appreciate what they've got.
Yeah, I mean, several people, when I've been picking up some of the cars, and I picked up a McLaren Black Arrow at the swap meet as well, which was clearly John's. And one of the other guys said, I reckon this is John's. And he said, yeah, we've seen that DNA before. Definitely seen that DNA. We know exactly what that is, exactly how he's built it, because we've both got cars of John's that were built exactly the same way. But somebody else, oh yeah, that's worth £40 of anybody's money. The chassis alone, the body alone, the this alone, that's like, no, that's not why I'm buying this car. I'm not buying this car to strip it for parts. I'm buying this car because it's something I really want, and so I managed to get it. I've got one or two now, and I'll keep on looking. If I find
That's
more,
cool.
I'll grab them.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, very cool. Anything else, Alan?
No, I'm done now.
Awesome.
What time? When is Gaydon?
Oh, I'll have to look at the dates for
It's
you.
May sometime, right?
Yeah,
And
I don't have
End of May.
I don't have my diary here, so someone else will know.
Okay. For those who don't know, that's the British Slot Car Festival.
That's the big one, right?
That's the bucket list one.
Yeah. So if you're going to travel to the UK, do it around the end of May.
Yeah.
28th, 29th.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah, if I could hide that from my wife, maybe we would go. But
like Alan said, send her to London.
I tell you what, Frank, you and I go together and we tell our wives that we're racing at Buena Park with them.
there you go. It's just going to take a week or two to get back.
Yeah, it's a long way from you where you are to Buena Park anyway.
We're going to walk.
And with the traffic, I mean, what can you say?
You're going to walk and don't look back.
Yeah, well, yeah, do what I do. Say you're going for milk 2 weeks later, you come back.
We could have a race to Northern California that you could kind of come to and just disappear for a week.
There you go.
I mean, Northern California, you could let the ladies go do a wine tour or something.
No, it's just a fake. They're going to England.
Oh. Well, the ladies won't have to know.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing, sir. Does anybody else have any questions for Alan before we move on to our next sharer? Seeing and hearing none, let us go to Anthony. Go ahead, Mr. Ant.
Well, I'm back again after, I think, 6 months.
Been a while.
Yeah, but I've been listening to all the videos. Thank you very much for your advice and everything, taking everything on board. So I'll show you what I have been doing up to late recently, if I can get my share screen on there. Has that worked?
It's coming in.
Is that there now?
Oh,
It says you started screen sharing. It just hasn't appeared for me yet. It might be an internet thing.
It could well be. We are having trouble being in this area. Is it? No?
No, it should be here by now. Go ahead and stop. And let me stop
Stop
it.
and do it again. What a good intro, eh?
Yeah, there. Yeah, go ahead and try it again.
I would do. My screen's frozen now. Right, try one more time. If it doesn't work, then I'll have to cancel.
In the meantime, we'll just look at David's dog.
Is it there this time?
Not yet, but it's coming. There we go.
Right, so that's what you saw last time when it was up in the loft. That's basically the layout you saw. So then now I have completely, if it moves on.
Give it time.
Oh, come on.
It's all right. We've got time. Not to worry.
I know, but I don't like taking up everyone's time because I know I asked the question last time and that took a lot of time.
And don't worry. We all bring snacks. It's okay.
There we
That's
go.
the layout now, all done up. Well, in progress. It's still in progress.
Yeah.
So a bit of scene going on there. And on one of the pictures, if I can get to it.
So for the picture we're currently looking at, you did the rocks with like foam or expandable.
That's it. Yeah, you've got it. Yeah, you know the tricks of the trade. Yeah.
Did you do static grass or just glue on the powdery grass stuff or just paint?
No static. I thought I'll have a go at static grass on that. So I've done the scenery in that. I want to do some trees and that, make it a bit more of a woodland rally theme. So like in the woodland and that. So that's the hill climb that I've got. Part of the hill climb done. And painted.
We can't see the differential between the very bottom there. I'm going to say to the inside of your track, to the height of your track on the outer side. What is that differential?
How high does it go?
It must be about 8 to 10 inches.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so I wanted to create. It's based. I love the Monte Carlo rally in France, so I based my track design on that.
Nice. Did I see that it was 2 separate layouts, all on the
Yes,
same board?
Yes. So it's like I've done it like a rally theme. So you've got 2 stages. You've got
okay.
A hill climb and
Nice
one on
idea.
the flat. I'm big into rally, and obviously now you see a Peugeot 206 now.
Yep.
That is an auto art body shell, which is beautifully detailed, but to drive with the chassis on it is terrible. It's too high. I don't know what they've done, but they are brilliant at designing detailed cars. So what I did do was I did something that Alan mentioned a few weeks ago, and that is a chopped chassis with an SCX 206 modified. So I've like Frankenstein them together, and the ride is so much better. But I did notice that a few people were, again a few weeks ago, were asking about SEX chassis. You can get them from Hobby Classics, based in Spain, and they do have quite a number of different chassis for different cars. So if people are looking for them, that's why I wanted to get on to make sure that you understood where I got them from, basically, and had success with them. So that's everything.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And your track is looking great. And do you have a YouTube? Have you put videos up of your cars going around or anything yet?
No, I'm not that technical.
You do it with your phone. You get YouTube on your phone. You take a picture. You take a video. Go to your pictures. Share it to YouTube. Bada bing, bada boom. That's what I do these days. I'm super lazy. I don't even do editing. I just take a video, share to YouTube, then I give people the link.
Well, I'll make sure I try and do that then and drop it on the chat at one point.
Yeah, it's super,
Then we
super
get
easy.
back on.
Yeah, don't be afraid of giving it a try.
Oh, no.
Whereabouts do you live?
Manchester, Bolton.
Oh, Manchester, no, it's too far. Can't visit you.
Well, anybody else who's in Manchester, come on the chat and talk to Anthony. Maybe he'll let you come by. So thanks for joining the
too
chat.
far in England?
Right? Too far in England is like around the corner for us.
Golly.
Well, 20
Manchester
minutes.
from
Oh,
London
20
is
minutes.
200 miles.
Yeah, that's not even half of my state, bro.
None of them have cars, they have bicycles, so, you know.
I've worked in Manchester, so
Well, he knows where it is. Thanks for sharing, Anthony.
No problem.
Next on my show and tell is Henry. What you got today, Henry?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it by this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, your carts, yeah.
Yeah, great.
I tried several things. This is the scale auto tire. And this one I tried with the FTS beer. No, well, wrong. BRM. BRM have a Formula One car. This one. So I tried that tires with you call it donuts? You call it donuts, I think. So these are from the BRM, and they last longer, and they drive also pretty well. We had a race of 2 with them, and the windscreens broke by 2 cars. So we did make another one, a stiffer one, or stronger one, I must say. And a friend of mine, Mark, of the club, he is very good with decaling. And these are still on a plastic material. It's not a real decal, but he made the decals with our logo in it, the H&M track card. So it's and this is the blue variation of it.
Wow.
That looks great.
It's looking great now.
I think Greg wants that one with the yellow stripe, right?
And I have to think, because they want to buy them on the club. Yeah, if you buy this one, it's with 124 scale 4 rims. Yeah, it costs €12.95. So we made from the 3D printer, and I bought a simple tire from Carrera, and then it costs only €2. So
for the fronts?
Yeah, for the fronts. Yeah, normally it's about €13 from Scale Auto, and you take an axle, you put it in, you glue it on, and it drives wonderful. No problem at all. Yeah, you have to do some trimming.
Yeah.
And but I'm curious, because at the end I have this one is broken at the end. And I know in the races they broke another one, and from the original it's an iron bar, but I know also that bends really easy when it collapses. So I don't know what to do with that at the moment. When we print it,
Can you make that back bumper a separate part that either screws on or glues on?
Yeah.
And then print it out of TPU.
Yeah. TPU?
Yeah, because TPU is stiff, but it'll flex. So if it gets hit, it won't break. It'll just bend and then slowly kind of go back to its original shape. But it would have to be a separate piece. Otherwise, you have to print the whole chassis in TPU.
Yeah, this is one print, because you can split this down.
Yeah.
And then I put it over and I glue it. So we make a separate one.
Yeah. So do that but with TPU. Should work great.
Greg, was TPU the stuff you're using to make tires?
That's the stuff that I tried tires with, yeah. And I've printed other things with it. Like a while ago, somebody had me print a VR headset set of straps for a project that they were doing, and it's not stretchy, but it's flexible, and it's very, very strong. You can't break it. You can't stretch it and snap it. You can't tear it. You pretty much can only either melt it or cut it with a sharp tool. So I think for something that's going to get a lot of impact, TPU is the way to go. And it's not even expensive anymore. Like the roll that I bought was like I think it was a half a kilo roll, 500 gram roll for like $20. Whereas, in the past it was like, $50 for that much. And it's not like a super low shore rating. It's fairly high shore. I don't know what the actual shore number is, but it's not good for back tires, but it's good for front tires because there's no grip. And it would be great. I think it would be perfect for this application.
And does it print well?
You'd probably want a direct extruder. So if your printer has a Bowden, the extruder motor is separate from the hot end and pushes the filament all the way through a tube. That's a little bit more difficult. Yeah, so point down a little bit. Yeah, so the motor on the side, which is pushing the filament, has to push it all the way through that Bowden, through that PTFE tube.
Yeah.
And so depending on the inner diameter of the PTFE tube and the diameter of the filament, there could be a lot of space between the filament and the inside diameter of the tube, which allows the TPU to flex inside the tube.
Yeah.
But a high shore TPU like the I think it's Sane Smart was the brand that I used, is fairly stiff. I mean, it's bendable obviously, but it's stiff. So you could probably print it on that anyways. I just don't have a whole lot of experience with that kind of printer because mine are both direct extruders.
Yeah.
So it works fairly easily with mine, but there's just some different things that you need to do, like change the or reduce the clamping pressure on the extruder gear. Idler. So you unscrew that so it's not clamping so hard.
Yeah.
And then change retractions and stuff like that because it is a stretchy material, so it'll compress more and stretch a little bit more during retractions and unretractions and stuff like that. But if you go to whatever, Ender 3 or whatever machine that is, group and say, what are your settings for printing TPU?
Yeah, I'm going to look at it.
They'll tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's good advice. Thank you. That's it.
All right. Thanks for sharing. Anybody got any questions for Henry before we move on? All righty, let's move on. Big Dan, what you got to show and tell?
Good morning from Australia, good afternoon, wherever you are in the rest of the world. Couple of comments to start with. When Greg's dog was playing with a toy, it brought back memories of Rubber Ducky from Sesame Street.
Rubber Ducky, you're the one.
I got a bit teary, Frank and Dennis, if you managed to sort of get halfway to convincing your wives you were only in Buena Park when you're gated, for goodness sake, don't explain your tardy return as a wrong turn at Milton Keynes, because the jig will be up then. Milton Keynes being down Allen's way. So in true Petrucci form, I've got a new soldering iron here that I've got a little bit more oomph. So I'm thinking of doing a bit of heavy duty brass work in the near future. And so now
what was that? What was? You didn't see the name.
It's just a cheap and nasty one called Trade Flame, Dennis, but it's 60 watts. Where my own.
It's for your hair. Is it for your hair, for curling?
No, it's a soldering iron.
Oh,
yeah.
60 watts going to be enough?
Yeah, 60 watts is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least I've got some hair, Henry. I don't have to wear a cap on top. So.
It's not just the wattage that's important when you're soldering, when you're making brass chassis, because what the wattage does is just tells you how quickly it's going to heat up. But the big thing is to have a heavy enough tip that it carries enough heat that when it transfers to the brass, it doesn't get cold.
It's had an optional chisel tip in the kit, so
you'll use the chisel tip a lot more than you'll use the round tip.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll try a screen share now. So, and I'm not as organised as I usually am with doing fancy cropping and things. These are just on my Google Photos. This is the body is out of a Marusan kit, one of the old Japanese ones from the 60s. So rather than just the plain color, I decided to give it a, try and do a recreation of one of the Indy Lotus Fords, Lotus 29. So
you can probably zoom in. If that's Google Pictures, you can zoom in.
yeah. Oh, let's just see if
If you got a scroll wheel mouse, just use that. Use the scroll wheel.
there we go.
You have a monocular on the right side.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's scrolling there now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's then there's just going to be a front view of it there. So if we could just get to the next picture.
You got to scroll back out. You got to zoom back out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oops. Okay. Now if I hit the arrow. Now that's how I've still got one of the original ones. So that's how it comes in original color.
You're turning a sow's ear into a silk purse, Big Den. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, and I've got a couple. The decals sheet I got from Pato's has got enough for three different color variations of the Indy. So I'll probably do all three when it. I'll scroll back out again and move forward. Now, that's the standard driver. If that's not the ugliest slot car driver you've ever seen, I'd like to issue a challenge for anyone else to find something. I call him Merv Marusan. So he's I mean, you'd rather kiss an orc or an alien or a predator or something like that. He's a pretty ordinary looking guy. So I'll try and find some decent heads.
There are uglier ones then.
I was gonna say, I don't know. It looks like he had some plastic surgery at some point, and they didn't do that seam very well.
The
Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz.
There you go.
Okay,
but not many.
Yeah. Now that car there, that's another one of the Marusan Lotus Fords. That's the entry I raced in the inaugural Adelaide Grand Prix back in 1997. I never ever managed to get over for subsequent races, but I'm thinking of eventually. I'm not sure whether to leave this as a semi-historic bit or just repaint it with one of the Pato's decal sets. So I'll make my mind up on that in time. There's just a front view of it. As you can see, there's some of my works in or some of the other ones in the back. As I said, didn't have time to crop. Oh, that's the underneath of the chassis on the one I raced in the big race over in Adelaide. So I think it had a Johnson 222 motor I put in, whereas the original was one of those hit motors with the 3 vents in it. It's a cheap and nasty one. So. And I don't know whether Dennis might be able to pick up the relevance of this picture. They're two of my recent repaints. The yellow one is a Revo slot repaint that I had done from a white kit some time ago. The red one is a recent one I did. It's an SCX body. If you any ideas, Dennis? Well, just
I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
Yeah, what are you asking?
No, well, actually, I'll
apart from the fact that the right one is either something for Greg or it's solidarity with the Ukraine.
No. I just recently saw a video by Ernie Mazzetti, and
he was announcing his
MR
333 that's coming out.
MR slot racing, Ernie, Mazzetti Racing
MR slot car.
They are planning to introduce those two liveries on their Ferrari 333. So I'm not sure whether I'm an influencer in the slot car world or what these days. So.
He's been talking about them for a while. He maintains that his 333s are prettier than the Revo slot ones, but I haven't seen them yet. But we'll see when they come.
Yes, I only saw his video just a couple of days ago, so it just hit me, that I'd already sort of dabbled into those two liveries myself. So,
well, he's making that blue and yellow one. I'm buying one.
Well, in fact, I think the blue canopy and the blue wing, the original ones, I think the wing at the back was black, and I just took a bit of liberties with the placement of the blue just to make it a bit different. Yeah. Anyway, that's me for today on Show and Tell. Anyway.
All right, thanks, Big Den. Anybody got anything they want to ask or tell Big Den before we move on? All righty, let's go to Dennis. Take it away, Mr. Sampson. And don't forget to unmute yourself. You're still muted, Dennis.
All right, sorry about that. There was two things. The first thing was when I was, because normally I watch this video in the gallery thing, so I have a little bar along the bottom of it, and today it's telling me that there are 36 participants.
Yeah.
Is that a record?
I have not been watching the total number, but that definitely sounds like it might be the record, if not tied for the record.
Well, that is fantastic, guys.
Yeah.
36 guys. Yeah. 36 old farts playing with slot cars on a Wednesday morning. That's
Talking about playing with slot cars.
Or afternoon or
Talking about
evening,
John.
depending on where you're at.
Anyway, excellent. And the only other thing that I was going to do was just when Den was talking, Big Den was talking about ugly drivers, I was going to say, could you see that? Those were the two cars that I did for Russell.
Oh, yeah.
You remember those old Scalex tinplate things?
Yeah.
And those drivers were absolutely butt ugly before the paint. And
Yeah.
even after the paint, they had no shape whatsoever, no hands. Yeah. Anyway, so that's how it's not just yours, Dan. There are others.
Yeah. And every time I look at them, Dennis, I want to thank you because I love those cars.
Yeah, they did
Awesome.
come out well. The guy who did the paint did a fantastic job.
Yeah, he did do a
It
good
was
job.
probably
but-
well worth the amount of time it took to get them.
Yeah.
Oh, the cars are great. It's, so they're driven by Peg and Bob. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Anyway, that's all for me right now.
All right, I guess that means it's my turn. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll talk about the things that I want to share. And where did my screen go? Hold on. That's what I get for messing around. There we go. Okay, so momentarily you should be seeing a prototype of a light box, start light box. This is HO scale. So what you see here is about 4 centimeters in length, 1 centimeter in height, and 7 millimeters in depth or thickness. The shades for the lights are only about 6 millimeters tall off the plate there. As you can see, these are terrible quality, and that's because these are each printed with a single extrusion, and it's hard to get a clean start and stop just in such a short period of time, such a short distance, and not have any kind of icky bits. So the next one, he wanted it printed in black. So these are the production ones. The actual thickness of the shades is twice as thick. So the extrusion actually goes from one end, loops back around, and back to the other end. So it came out much cleaner. This is straight off the printer. So there's still some minor stringing, but that cleans up super easy with a hair dryer or a heat gun or a scalpel or whatever.
Can you do a better job with resin?
It could do a better job with resin, but I hate resin, so I didn't even offer that.
Okay.
I actively avoid using my resin printer. So,
Okay.
But yeah. So and I don't have any black resin, so this is what he wanted. One of the other things that I could do with this printer is there are lenses here. So this is actually a what's called natural or just plain PLA filament with no color additives at all. So it's essentially translucent.
Crystal clear.
It's not crystal clear. It's translucent, and that's why I try to make that clear. I've had people ask me for, like, can you print windows? And I always say no. It's going to be just a cloudy thing. But the nice part is that it's translucent, so light shines through it. You can see the stringing there a little bit more clearly because light's on it. But then he sent, after I sent them to him, he put the LEDs and hooked them up and sent me a couple pictures back with the LEDs glowing brightly. So I figured I'd show that off. Once he gets them installed in his track and sends me pictures of the actual thing so you can see I mean, they're just teeny weeny little thing. The pictures make them look so much bigger than they are. I mean, they're like microscopic. HO scale. I mean, it's for an HO track, so they look to scale on an HO track. Any questions on this before I move on to my next show and tell?
You gonna sell those?
I'm gonna put the models on Thingiverse for anybody to print, but I'd be happy to print them if anybody wants me to print them for their needs.
Yeah, I know 2 tracks here in Sacramento that would probably want those.
Yeah, and I could probably get the information on the LED panel he uses. Those are addressable RGBs, so they only take the 3 wires you see there in that photo.
Would they tie into TrackMate so you could actually use them to start the race?
I don't know what software he's using, but I imagine that if not TrackMate, then Race Coordinator for sure would have some kind of output to addressable RGBs. But yeah, I'll ask him. Once he gets that hooked up, I'll try to get some more information to share on the Thingiverse, and then I'll say this was designed for yada yada RGB LED panel, and it works with blah blah blah. So
and you scale it up to 1/32 scale too.
Exactly.
Exactly. This was designed specifically for this RGB panel that he had. I forget what it was previously used for. I think he said maybe drones or trains or something else, RC or something. Anyways, he got these panels and said, oh, these would probably be great. And then he basically sent me the dimensions. He even sent me a panel so that I could make sure that the print fits and everything works and lines up and all that stuff.
Okay, so they're not standalone LEDs. So
no, I should have got a picture of the
housing. It wouldn't help much. Okay.
It wouldn't. And so ideally you would either design a panel to go in the larger housing, or you would design the housing to encompass another panel that's of an appropriate scale.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the next thing I wanted to show and tell was this very simple solution to making sure you get the same true depth on your tire raiser. The knob is big enough that I had originally just used a single black mark, and I would just kind of tell myself, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever. But then I realized I could just mark the knob divots and spikes with numbers to make sure I go to the correct number. The reason for this is because, as is not uncommon for tire raisers and other similar truing machines, sometimes one side hits before the other side hits. So what I had been doing in the past was I would true both tires until one of them was true, and usually the other one was not perfectly true. And then I would flip it around and do the same thing until the other one was perfectly true. But the problem is that sometimes they're not the same. Even though I've trued them both, they're still not the same. And I know that happened once or twice because I had a car that ran great, except one time when we were at Allen's track, which has a nice long, like 40-foot straight. Once the car got up, you could see its tail waggling back and forth. And I'm like, okay, well, that's because one of the wheels is just infinitesimally smaller than the other. So now I don't even bother trying to do both at the same time. I just have one side of my sanding plate has sandpaper on it. So I still flip it around, but this allows me to make sure that the other side gets to the same level, because the difference between 13 and 14 is like a thou, maybe less. It's just, I mean, you can see the thread, the pitch of the thread of the bolt there. So the difference between 13 and 14 is very, very small. I haven't measured it. I'm not that anal, but it's close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades. Any questions on this before I move on?
So what are you using to match that, say, number 12 to on the tire raiser then?
It's matched only to itself. So basically, the number that is facing me is the number that I assign to that depth, right? So if I'm turning the knob, I'll turn the knob multiple times until the tire hits. And then for that particular wheel and tire combination, they're going to hit at about the same number of rotations. And then, if I end up on 13 or 12 or 11 or 14 or whatever, I remember that that's where I ended up for that wheel. And then when I flip it around, I go through the same process, and it might hit when the number facing me is like 4 or 5, unlikely, but it might hit way early because it's got a really tall bump.
Right.
And then I just make sure that I work myself down to the same number facing me as I had for the first.
Gotcha.
tire.
So basically, right now that 13 is parallel with the top of the.
Pretty much, yeah. The 13 is what's facing
Gotcha.
forward, and that's basically the number that I would reach in this instance.
It's a reference number, not a dimension. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Exactly. It's only a reference number
Got
for me
it.
to remember. Yeah, it's not in any way dimensionally associated with anything.
Have the newer versions of that tool corrected that problem? Because I have an Area 3, it does the same thing.
No, and technically what John says, so this is one of the 2 bolts that holds the top plate on. This goes all the way through to the bottom, and there's a big old Allen, a hex bolt. He says you can turn one or the other to raise or lower one of the sides. So if it's not hitting evenly, he suggests that you do that. I have not managed to break either of those free from whatever Loctite is in there, and I didn't feel it important enough to potentially damage my machine by forcing it or heating it up or putting something in there to try to break the Loctite. It looks like it might just have blue Loctite on it, but a lot of it, because I could not break it free with hand power. So the other idea that I had was taking a flat file, because this one has 2 angle brackets as opposed to a curve or some other shape. It's basically just 2 45s making a 90-degree angle holding the bushings. I was thinking on the one that is high, I could shave the bottom down just a hair and try again, but I would probably ruin that and just make it hit lower on that side instead of. So I decided to just use this technique. It's fine. The whole point of this machine is so that I don't have to replace, a plastic press-on wheeled axle with all metal parts. I don't mind doing one tire at a time and flipping the axle around, as long as I don't have to replace the whole axle with slotted parts. I'm a happy camper. This also led me or leads me to talk about the slotted G25 tires that I was truing most recently.
Oh, what the hell?
My first attempt at truing the tires did not go well.
No, they don't like you, do they?
It was very difficult, and I knew ahead of time that it was going to be difficult, so I was trying a variety of techniques, slow and low pressure and slow, high, and like Dennis said for the scale of the Revo slot tires, speed it up, grind it down, and back it off. None of those worked for me. What ended up finally working is me sitting there, and fortunately I had my reciprocator, so I had both hands free, and I basically had it at high speed, and the reciprocator was just going back and forth like a wild man. I sat there with a paper towel, soaking it in alcohol and making sure that tire stayed wet. Like it would.
I do water, only water.
I did alcohol. I did isopropyl alcohol. Water would probably work okay.
No.
I tried alcohol and it worked, so I stuck with it. And basically, yeah, I just sat there the whole time, just dabbing the tire, because I couldn't just have it in a trough of water, right? It would be spraying water everywhere. So basically I just, would wet the paper towel, dab it on the tire to make the tire shiny again from the alcohol, wait until it dried off, or I could hear the reciprocator slow down because of the tire being dry. And then I would just keep doing that over and over and over for the whole half hour per wheel that I had to do that. But the results are good. The tires are nice and true, and I hope next week that my car runs a lot better than it did this Monday with poorly trued tires. But yeah, those tires are a pain in the butt.
Yeah, we stopped with them because we didn't find the grip on the Carrera track and also not on the wooden track. So we're looking for something else. At the moment, we're testing BRM tires.
Yeah, grip seemed to be pretty good when I had my car on the track. It's just that they were out of trueness, and so they weren't stable enough compared to the other cars on the track. But yeah, I guess we'll find out next week if I'm up to snuff. When we did our test and tune, we were testing between the N18s that we had previously run on the same cars, and because those are no longer readily available, doing the G25s, and there wasn't a noticeable difference for us. So when I decided to replace these tires, I went with the G25s.
What we found at the Le Mans 24-hour race the other weekend was that the longevity of the G25 tire in comparison to both the N18 and the F22 that we previously used is that its longevity is at least twice as long and probably longer.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping for.
But you drive on an all different track. You drive on an Inco track.
Yes, we raced on an Inco track, which is
and there you have a lot of grip. There you have a lot of grip on it.
Yeah,
the grip, I would say, was slightly better than N18 or F22, marginally. The lap times were slightly quicker, so either all the cars were quicker, all the motors were quicker, or perhaps all the tyres were slightly better. But I think it was down to the tyres.
I've seen the testing at best at the Ninko track.
Yes.
And there was a too long a lifetime, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got your dyno machine the other weekend as well, Henry, by the way.
Sorry?
I got my hands on your dyno machine the other day. That was a nice piece of kit you've made there.
Thank you.
I'll talk about that in a minute. So, what, Duan?
I said, before you go, I have a general question on the tire raiser. When you have a tire coming off of a plastic wheel, and you don't want to take the plastic wheel off of the car, off the, what's the typical routine you use to mount the? You have to find a wheel that matches that tire. To use a razor on it?
No, the entire point of the Razor and the Area 3 and the RSM are that you can pop the axle out of the chassis in one complete unit and put it onto the machine without having to take anything apart. You don't have to pull anything off of the axle. You just put the whole thing right onto the machine. The only thing you have to do is put the pulley onto the axle, somewhere on the axle. The pulley has a slot in it, so you just slide it on and tighten it down.
Yeah.
So no modifications to the axle at all necessary. That's the reason I have it, is because I want to be able to do Carrera and Skillectric and all those pressed on wheel axles, not have to replace them or tear them apart.
I bought a spare set of axles and have wheels. Take the wheels, the ones with the grub screws, and put them on the axle as opposed to taking the axles off of cars. That's what I've been doing. Okay, so I'll just have to take the whole axles off. And then the tires with the track with the head marks on them. People normally through those all the tread off of them.
I mean, it depends on what kind of tire compound it is and how badly out of round it is. The last set of tires with tread I did was for my the Thunder slot, I believe. Either the slot or a previous. Anyways, it had tread, but they were very, very soft, grippy tires. In the past, I might have taken all the tread off. Just take it down so that the very last bit of tread is no longer there. This time, I basically took it down so that everything that was higher than tread was taken off. And so basically there was still a little bit of tread left in a couple of spots, but the high parts of the tire were taken down so that there was no tread no longer visible. But go ahead, Henry.
If you have another sort of tire raiser and you have the same problem for that car, like normally you do with an axle in it, and you do both tires on it, but they also sell, we call the stump, and then you can do the Carrera rims on it.
But how do you get the rim onto that stump?
Put them in the cylinder.
Yeah, but you have to.
How do you put it in? Oh, you just push them.
Yeah, so you have to pull it off of the Carrera axle to begin with.
Yes.
Yeah. So that risks
if you have
damage.
another machine than you have.
Yeah. So doing that risks damage to the wheel, both in the removal and the reassembly process.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people will just throw the original axle away and put slotted or NSR or whatever parts on there.
Well, Dewan's method too helps with trimming the front tires.
Taking the tires off and putting them onto a basically a mule wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
Because many cars out there don't have the bushings. They just go through little holes to hold them on. So, and most of us don't want to mess with those pearls.
Yeah, and the downside to that is that it's still a plastic wheel. So the wheel itself should be non-concentric. So you can have a perfectly true tire and you stick it on an untrue wheel and you've accomplished nothing.
Exactly.
So yeah, either for those situations, if the car is performing terribly because of the front wheels being out of concentricity, then I will go ahead and force them apart very carefully and put it on my truer and just try to be as careful as I possibly can so as not to cause more damage to the wheel than it came out of the package with.
And then that's what glue's for, if they're too loose.
Yeah. Yeah. If I damage it enough that it pops off easily, then yeah, put glue in. But I mean, like when you're trying to work that stupid thing off of the knurling, you might bend the hub in the process, and yeah, either crack it or just bend it a little bit. It's still plastic, right? It'll bend, and you'll have a wheel that's just a teeny bit like that. I've done it. All right, I'm not quite done sharing. Let me go back to my share here, and we'll finish that
Did
up.
you just drop word of the day on us there?
What?
Did you just drop word of the day on us there? That was nice.
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to myself. Okay, so this is my H&B test bench that I got just recently, and I've been having all kinds of fun putting cars on there and seeing how fast they really go. My version is the American version, so we've got feet per second instead of meters per second, and miles per hour instead of kilometers per hour. But yeah, it's a fun little tool, and I'm going to bring it to club next week, and we'll see what the other guys, think about it and what they do. This is my 1/24th Porsche 935 Turbo. Yeah, I mean, me and Henry talked about a lot of things, and they're already working on improvements for future versions. Good piece of kit, and like we've said about this product before, it's just a tool to measure and compare. What you do with that information is up to you. Don't get one of these things. If you have a magnet Marshall, you're just measuring and comparing to other cars on that magnet Marshall. Same kind of thing with this. If you're measuring RPMs or feet per second or miles per hour, you're just comparing it to other cars on this same device to see, like, if you don't even have a rule that like at our club, at the Analog Club, we have basically it's a box stock, quote unquote, box stock club. So all the motors are supposed to be technically the same RPM. All the gearing is the same. All the wheel diameters are the same. But if you've got some guy who's always pulling, 2 or 3 feet on the straight, it's like, maybe he's got one of those out of spec motors that go really fast. Sticking it on here will tell you for sure. You put your car at 12 volts on, and if it's getting, 5,500 RPM, and you put his car on and it's getting 6,000 RPM, he's got a nice hot motor, and that's why he's pulling on you down the straight.
Yeah.
Whether that's legal or illegal is up to you guys to determine in your club rules. But yeah.
Got any trouble with the fuse?
I have not popped a fuse yet. What are you putting on yours?
Well, I popped the fuse on mine.
Well, I did notice that if my braids weren't properly formed and a braid crossed over both of the rails, the machine would reboot. But that's on me. You can't, what are you going to do when you short out the rails? You short out the rails on a slot car track, you're going to have problems. So make sure
you can put in a bigger fuse.
So put a bigger fuse in, or just make sure that the rails are off. Hit your switch there to make sure the rails are off. Put your car on so that the braids are separated by the guide, and touching only one rail.
I know that at first, but no.
Now
I saw you doing it because you showed them 2 weeks ago, and I saw you put on the car on the bench, and you didn't look, and I saw it didn't work anymore. So I said in the message, you popped them.
Well, fuses are replaceable, and that's the whole point of the fuse, right? To protect
I've got a 5 amp
from damage.
I've got a 5 amp fuse.
Yeah,
So
that's no problem.
Yeah, probably want to turn that back down. And make sure your braids are nice and clean. You're not putting frayed, terrible looking braids down on there, so you don't keep popping fuses. The fuses have the purpose of protecting the device from damage. You want the fuse to pop, right? So don't short the fuse. Don't put a bigger fuse in there. Put the right kind of fuse in there.
The Arduino has a security. I don't think the Arduino will pop because
Okay,
it will restart. But on the 12-volt regulator, which come with it, I don't know what that does, and that's why I choose the way I make it this way.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know there are a lot of fools and they try everything and they pop everything if they can.
Yeah, you're looking at 36 of them, Henry.
Sorry?
36 of them? You better start manufacturing.
Yes. What's the MSRP?
I guess there was no yellow filament on the roll that day then, Greg.
That's the USA version with Lady Liberty down there in the corner and everything.
Ah, yeah.
That's right. And
Henry was kind enough to send me the models. So if I feel like reprinting it, I can always do that myself. But no, I'm fine. Red and blue is fine.
And this one is with for the SAP controller. There's an extra.
Yeah, he sent me that one so that I can plug in an SAP power leads so that I can do that. My SAPs are battery powered, so I don't have to use that. But for anybody else in the future, that's a good thing to have on hand so that people can do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Thank you for sending it. Look forward to showing it off to the guys at the club, and I'll let you know, and I'll let the chat know how that goes. Anybody else with questions before we move on? Russ, you got your hand up.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to mention was we had asked you guys about cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get a camera, pretty pricey.
Oh, let me spotlight you there. You might have to turn off your background.
Gotcha.
There you go. Yep, GoPro. Which version did you get? Is that the GoPro 10? Big old 10 on the side.
Sorry, the 10.
Good stuff.
And it is amazing. Does really well, really good video. Ultimately, I don't think you need to do that, but I could not find really what I'm looking for. I mean, what to me, what would work great, because I just want to video the races that we have, video of the cars going around the track, that type of thing. The GoPro 10, it's very clear. The cars run full speed. You can see them, no problem. What I envision being the perfect thing for me would be something I could control from my phone, similar to a Ring doorbell, only an indoor camera that would have the video quality, and you could set it up and use it. I think a camera like that may be, you might pay $100, $150, but a GoPro 10 with a special deal they've got going, you're looking at $350, $400, and if you go to Best Buy, there's $500. So it's a nice camera. I like it. Battery life's only about 30 minutes. That's a problem.
That seems a little bit low. If you
can run it a little longer, but if you're running like 5K or 4K, it sucks the juice.
Yeah, and if you're doing high frames per second, like if you're not planning to do slow-mo, don't film at 120 or whatever frames per second. Ratchet that back down to 60 or 30, because 30 is what you're going to see in the end anyways. The only reason to go any higher than 30 is if you plan to slow that video down for slow-mo or something like that. So that, if you're filming at a high FPS, even at 5K, lower the FPS is going to be, half or a third of the frames that it's having to record. Your battery will probably last a lot longer. The other thing that'll help your battery last longer, once you get the video going, if you turn off the Bluetooth, right? So it's just by itself. And most of the time, if I can reach the camera, I'll just make sure it's getting the view that I want, and then I'll turn off Bluetooth, and I'll just hit the start button manually.
Camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a, it's kind of hard to show it, but it's a little box that charges and shows your percentage on your, can you guys see this?
Hold it up a little bit. Hold it up
Oh,
in front of your face. In front of your face.
Higher.
Higher. In
Hit
front
your
of
nose. Up to your nose.
Oh, I got you.
There you go. Oh,
So,
no. Oh, so it's got batteries in there, multiple batteries.
yeah, and it
Disappearing
shows your,
rest.
yeah,
That's that virtual background.
Yeah, the
it
invisible
shows
man.
your voltage.
That's pretty cool.
So, so I got it. You know, you can get some special deals on this stuff for the GoPro 10 right now, but it does come with some pretty nice things. It's got a,
But you can charge you can plug the DC power into your GoPro, and then just you don't got to worry about battery then.
Yeah, if you can do an extension to power, you can leave it plugged in.
Just leave it plugged in.
so this is a magnetic clip that you can just clip right onto whatever, or it's magnetic, so you'll stick on to whatever you want it to, as long as it's metal. But the camera's phenomenal. I like it. Pricey, yeah, but it works. So, you know, I probably could have got by with a GoPro 8 or 7, but you know, what the heck.
Is it going to be mounted on a car, or are you trying to have it static around your track to just look at
The idea is to film the complete track. So I get the, you know, I do have it set for wide. And I mean, the detail is awesome. You know,
but it's still going to be a statically mounted camera, just getting a view of the overview of the track, a bird's eye view of the track, or is it something that's going to be mounted on a car going around the track?
mostly a bird's eye view of the track.
Why did you have to have a GoPro? Because you can do that with a lot of cameras.
I don't know, because I researched them. I couldn't find anything that was definitely would do the job for me.
Okay.
And I asked several people. You had mentioned to me the what was it, Intertext you sent me?
It was a mono price, but that was a little mounted portable device that mounted around the car.
From the car.
Yeah, I have a, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
okay. Well, I have a live streaming system in place that can take up to 6 camcorders that I can place 6 different, pretty much like what the Lucky Green does. They have multiple cameras around their track, and you put it in strategic positions, bird's eye view in different positions around the track. And you can zoom in, zoom out, and things like that, depending on the features of the camera. Go to each one. But that's expensive. That was an expensive venture.
Oh, well, I was just going to ask you, could you control that from your phone, or?
Well, possibly. It's a web interface, so yeah. But I have it all, because of 6 cameras. It's not on a computer, and you know, that's too much for a phone.
Yeah.
You want a large director's view. It's got a director's station that allows you to show. That's a whole different animal. It's going outside the realm of what most people want to do.
I mean, the nice thing about the GoPro is how versatile it is. You know, like you've got the magnetic clip. You can just stick it to anything and point it the right direction. Or if you wanted to, you could mount it to a car chassis and get that point of view footage on your track. With that GoPro 10, it'll look fantastic, like that other video that we've seen, with the stabilization and all that stuff. And you know, just if you want different viewpoints from around your track, then you're gonna have to move the camera around and then have the guys drive the cars around some more. And a long time ago, when I did those fancy edited videos, I only have one camera, so basically I would, have the guys just kind of drive the cars around slow enough for me to get some good footage, and I just did it from multiple points on the track, looking down the straight, looking back up the straight, looking at special corners where the cars are drifting a little bit and stuff. And then I would cut it all together. And even if you had 10 cameras all with their own permanent location, you would still have to do some kind of editing, whether you have a fancy console where you can just hit a 1 and a 2 to switch between camera views while you're recording. You're still going to have to somebody's going to have to be pushing buttons. Or after the fact, you've got all these videos that you're going to have to then splice together into a fancy thing. Right. And you can do that with any camera. Like if you just want to get some cheap cameras to put around your track that are just going to stay there, then do what John was suggesting last time we talked about this and just go get the cheap GoPro clones from AliExpress or Amazon or whatever. You can probably find action camera devices that look like GoPros, but they're not branded GoPros.
They're clone pros.
They're clone pros, exactly. And you'll still get, 480p or whatever. You still get HD video, not 5K, but HD video.
You'll get 1080, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, you get good quality video at a good price. And then if you want to, you can sit down for hours and hours at your computer and do all the editing and stuff. There's a great free video editor called Lightworks for Windows. Works great, very powerful, 100% free. I just don't use it anymore because I don't enjoy that process anymore.
Yeah. If you're using a GoPro, there's a really good accessory that I'm going to show you that I think would be worth your while to purchase.
Okay.
And it's made by GoPro and it works on the 10 and it solves your battery problems too, because it's got a 5,000 milliamp battery built into the grip.
Oh, that's cool.
That I have a similar accessory for my Sony camera, and it's worth its weight in gold when you're shooting this type of video.
That a gimbal too? Does it keep the camera stable?
No, it's not a gimbal. It's just a mini tripod grip. It has the controls here for starting and stopping, and this particular one has a battery built into it. So that's why there's a cable there. The on off and this would work wirelessly, but the cable's for the battery. So I think, if I had a GoPro, I would definitely buy that.
Yeah. So do they advertise how much longer that battery life is?
Well, it's I don't know how big a capacity the standard battery is, but that's a 5,000 milliamp. So we could just do the math.
Yeah.
So that's a good few hours of video.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. And Mike has his hand up. What you want to share today, Mike?
I want to get back a little bit to the G25 tires.
Yeah.
I've had the best luck with them using drywall screen.
Yep.
Going in like 4 or 5 times a tire and then letting it sit. And usually with the tires, unless you get one that's really flat, which I have encountered already, you can get them basically round, and then I finish them off with 2000 grit with a little bit of charcoal lighter on them. And the charcoal lighter grabs the pieces that are on there and will clean them off pretty nice and give a good finish. And the G25s, at least until the A25s from Scale Auto get here, have proved to be the best traction on my track.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the way I do it. I was doing it. It took me like 5 minutes to true this, and probably another 5 minutes to do the final truing with 2000. So it was pretty easy. So give the 100. It's 100 grit drywall screen.
Yeah, that's what I usually use. The last thing that I used was like 80 grit, like diamond grit stick on. I got a roll of the stick on stuff so I could just peel and stick a new piece on whenever I needed to.
Yeah.
And that's got great abrasiveness to do damage real quick. And I was surprised that even with such a coarse sandpaper that it still had that warming up problem. And I'll try lighter fluid next time. If it helps things go faster, absolutely.
Well, I only use the lighter. It's charcoal lighter, not lighter fluid.
Same stuff. But yeah.
Difference. Yeah, it is different stuff. Well, the reason because I tried lighter fluid with it too, and it doesn't work as well.
Okay.
Charcoal lighter seems to work better.
Like Kingsford.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so,
it's cheaper.
And it's cheaper, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and plus a can of it will last you for a lifetime, I think.
Yeah, what I found with that is that the if you use lighter fluid, and particularly if you use VMP naphtha, that on some tires it would split the tire right along the mold lines. On the softer tires like the NSR Ultra Grips or the slotted N22s, they would actually split because the fluid is so aggressive. And quite honestly, if I was doing G25s, I think while you're grinding, I think Henry's idea of using water is quite possibly the best one.
Yeah,
for the initial part of it, and then the lighter fluid at the end, because whatever you use, whether it's charcoal lighter or regular lighter fluid, it's going to soften the surface of the tire, and that just can make it even more difficult to firstly to actually get it to cut, and secondly to maintain the size between one tire and the next.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of lighter fluid on tire truing. I like cooling, and I've used water successfully for that. Well, that's what the G25s are particularly poor in the mold, I find. We were using mold 1171, which is a 20 by 10 diameter, and I know that you use 20 by 12, don't you, Mike?
Yeah.
1172, I think that mold is.
Right, 1172.
Well, I found that there was a distinct seam, a joint that was opposite the injection area where the injection goes into the bead. It's like the mold was filled from that one place, and it goes around the mold in two directions and meets itself on the other side. And that puts a line across the tread area that you can visibly see.
Yes.
And that was always the lowest area when I came to truing.
Yep.
And I've seen them split along that mold in exactly the same way that Dennis describes when they've been in the box for 12 months. No treatment, no usage, no nothing. You just come back to the box, pick out the same wheels for a future event, and the tires are completely split, and it's always across that line. And there was never any application of any additives or solvents in those cases, but they were stretched.
Just means that, and it just means that the rubber was already getting cold by the time it got there.
I think so. Yeah, I would agree.
Joining up properly.
That one guy on here said he used flour or something to cool his
Yes,
tire.
one of the Australian guys said use flour.
I've tried that.
Cornstarch would do the same thing.
Yeah, I tried the flour trick once before. I forget what tires I was doing it on, and it worked okay. But I kind of like the alcohol because it cools quickly. Because cooling is through the evaporation. It evaporates quickly, so it cools quickly. And because it evaporates quickly, I wasn't generating a puddle below the tire as quickly as I did with water. It didn't fling like you can put as little flour on the tire as you want, but you're still gonna get flour all over the place.
I think if you're in states that still sell it, that denatured alcohol is possibly even better than isopropyl because it evaporates even quicker.
Yeah.
But here in California, they decided that it causes cancer and all kinds of other aberrations, and so we can't get that anymore.
Tails and all that.
Yeah,
I only dip my finger in the water, and then I dip my finger on the tire, and that's all.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what I would do as well. But yeah, I'll probably try water next time and see if because I'll probably, basically I had 2 sets at the ready on Monday to see which one, because I had glued one set and it glued on terribly and I couldn't undo it without redoing it. So I just kind of went with it. And so I just took another set and just put it on without glue and checked which one ran better and then ran whichever one seemed to run slightly better because I didn't have time to get back to truing until.
There's a pretty good topic right there, Greg. What are people's favorite ways to glue their tires to their wheels? Personally, with very, very thin super glue on the point of a pin. I make a very small bead on the point or on the pointy end of a pin or a needle, and then I just peel the tire edge back with the left thumb and introduce the pin point and I get about a little bit less than a quarter of the rev of the tire of the wheel glued down with one droplet on the head of a pin. And then I move around to the opposite side and do about a quarter of a rev. And in between times, I let it set up, and then I'll go and fill in the gaps with the pin. I just wondered if anyone else had a very, very neat technique that was any better than that.
Mine certainly isn't. I'll have to try that next time.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Hey, I want to go back and ask Michael. Michael, do you think the oil in the charcoal lighter fluid helps soften the tire?
I haven't noticed any difference. I think it probably does soften the very outer layer, but I don't put that much on. You know, I'll do 3 or 4 revs to smooth out the tire and let it go after that, because anything polishing or anything that I do after that doesn't seem to make a lot of difference on my track. So,
which is plastic.
Yeah, it's plastic track and scale extric. You know, there's a difference in the plastics, so plastic tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was Dennis or maybe Chris, but I remember a while back there was discussion on using like charcoal lighter fluid because it works really well because it has those oil additives in there and it is super cheap. Don't gotta buy a fancy tire prep stuff when that stuff works so well.
All of the above. Although, I mean, eventually when you get to really wanting ultimate traction, then you know, you have to follow Jim and start oiling them.
Yeah. Yeah, the lighter fluid or Kingsford or whatever is a final thing. You don't. That's not your only thing. That's like right before the race kind of thing. You still want to do oiling to either generate the bubble or just get it nice and soft.
I'm on the gym train. Oil tires. I just do it every day. It's just a habit. You've got 10 or 15 sets. You oil them up. Boom, away you go. 2 or 3 years later, I'm going to have some puddle on the track that sticks when they're upside down, kind of thing.
No, you want that.
Wayne, I got to tell you, I use this the black rubberized super glue.
Yeah.
And then I use a real small flat blade screwdriver, and I get in there and I hold the tire open, and then and I go all the way around, but I only do one side at a time.
Have you had issues with that splitting the tires?
No, and it seems to hold up to the oil too.
No, because I did. So I quit using it. I had a couple split with that. I'm sure it's the same stuff. It was branded under, you know, my local hobby shop, and it's black super glue.
I had an issue with the same stuff, a not identical bottle. I bought a bottle of cheap rubberized super glue from eBay, and it was the typical round bottle with a red paper label. But what I found was I could not get it undone. I like to use, what is it I like to use?
That's the idea.
To get it off, to recover my wheels. And I can even take tires off and put them on different wheels if I want to, because I can get super glue undone. But that kind of glue went rock solid and would not come off, would not dissolve.
Yeah, you have to I use acetone to clean it off.
That's what I used. Sorry, that's correct. Acetone. Nail polish remover. I can normally take glues off, take the cyanos off, and I fully expected to be able to do the same with the black one, but it didn't even touch it.
I've been using glue design for RC cars, and for me it works the best.
Yeah,
because it has that little elasticity, or what it's not super rigid, and it's designed specifically for not so much for metal wheels, but for rubber tires on plastic wheels, and so that's works best for me.
Yeah, the stuff that works quite well is the Gorilla glue, the Gorilla super glue, the one with the blue cap, but it's also slightly rubberized, and it has the advantage that you can get it just about anywhere. And I use that quite a lot. Yeah, but that's the gel. So the one with the blue cap, which is just the regular thin stuff, that's the one I use.
Okay.
And then again, the same way as you do, I don't use a screwdriver. I just take a toothpick and I slice the end of it so that it has a flat chisel end to it. I put a drop of super glue, and then I wipe I pull the toothpick through the super glue so that glue's only on one side of that flat. Then I open it up and I run the super glue around on the tire side, and then let the tire side carry it back to the rim. And with that Gorilla Glue, it doesn't set up straight away. So I can usually get it all the way around and then actually run the toothpick all the way around the wheel to make sure it's properly distributed, and then wipe off what's left and do the one side of a number of tires and then turn them over to the other side.
Right. Yeah, normally I do whatever Dennis says because that keeps me out of trouble. And,
I got to remember that for the next time you and I are competing in a proxy. So you do what I say and I'll do what somebody else says. Yeah.
And everybody does what Dennis said.
So living in Tennessee, they don't really sell toothpicks down here.
Yeah, that old saying that that toothpaste was developed in Tennessee, right? Because if it had been developed in California, it would have been teeth paste.
That's classic.
I've got to just share with you quickly a tip for when you super glue your tires on. I've seen and heard of people lifting the lip of the tire back. I think Wayne shared with us something about 6 weeks ago when he got an eye full of super glue. Never peel the lip of the tire back. Always grip the tread and squeeze it so that it moves around, and then you can get the thing in, and then you're not creating that friction force that can flip and kick the super glue out into your eyes. It's really, once you've got the toothpick in there, you can gently get it around. I know guys that use sewing needles, because sewing needles are absolutely, they're not going to bend. They're going to get that in. Once you've got that in there, you're good. Run it around the thing. It's really good. And while we're talking about glues, they sell this in the UK at cheapo shops, the local pound shop, 99 pence for a bottle of acetone like this. So this is great for stripping just about anything. This is great.
Hey, Alan, be careful. That thing will have your tip off.
Which tip? What? My nails? It's been a while since I've done my nails.
It just says tip remover. And I thought, I don't like the sound of that.
It's a girly thing. I don't know what all this is supposed to be.
Welcome to Slot Car Briss, everyone.
I think that went over everybody's head.
Yeah, let's leave that one on the floor. Let's leave
it where it is.
What you got your hand up for, Frank?
Well, Hap wasn't really happy, but he gave his seat up to Jim.
There we go.
We already silvered the helmet.
Yep.
Oh, good for you. Oh, there you go. Now that's Jim. That's
Jim jumped in there, and he's going to win.
Good for you. Excellent stuff. Well done. That really appeals to my OCD.
Yeah, I thought it would.
All right, and Jim,
I don't have OCD. I have CDO. It's like OCD, but the letters are in alphabetical order.
All right, Jim's got his hand up. What's up, Jim?
I don't know if Dennis was going to talk about the race last week or not, but I didn't see his hand up, so I guess I'll talk about.
Hell no, I'm not going to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it either. But Marco put together a really nice piece in my background. You can see he built a car carrier with 6 slots and 4. Yeah, you can see it. 6x4. Ironically, we had 24 cars in the race on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Just really nice park for me for putting the cars in.
Yeah.
Dennis's car behind your head, isn't it? On the top row.
Dennis's car is the Porsche, which is where?
It's on the top row, the second in from the right.
Yeah, next to the Marlboro. I normally prepare something with pictures, but I had a kidney stone last night, so I'm just kind of running on empty today. So other than talking about it a little bit, 24 cars. I've figured that track out pretty good the last 2 races, but there's 2 guys that figured it out a whole lot better this time. So more power to them, Ed Shore and Bob Ahuli. I drove Bob's. I don't know, Dennis, if you got a chance to drive Bob's car.
No, not yet.
Unbelievable.
Uh-huh.
My car was good. I finished third. But those two guys, their car, I drove both of them after the race, and their cars were just definitely a step above. So congratulations to them. But we had a good time, 24 cars. Interestingly enough, in this race, there is it's GT, primarily NSRs. Most of them were. There was a couple. There was a Black Arrow. There was one MR slot car, I think.
Yeah.
But there's what's called a light class, and they run together, and so they qualify together. And what the light class is totally different. The pro class is NSR 21.5 or 21.4 angle winders only, no magnets. The light class designed for beginners and newcomers is Scale Electrics and Carrera with stock motors, but the magnets stay in, even though you can't use the full magnets because there is a downforce limit. And one of our guys from Northern California put together a Carrera car, which was I forget which one. Audi. He had to take the front magnet out to get to the downforce limit and be legal. He qualified 6th at 8.3 or 7.3. Fast qualifier was 7.1. In the race, he ran the second fastest lap. He ran a 7.2 in the race, and the fastest race lap by the winner, or fastest race lap overall, was 7.08, I think it was. It was a high 7.0. So he was just a 0.15 of a second slower with a dead stock Carrera car. The only modification of the car was the front magnet was removed, and it had NSR tires on it.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting that you can get those cars to go that fast. It was dead slow down the straightaway, but just didn't slow down for the corners like you'd expect. So that was an interesting take.
And he's a little bit better than a beginner driver too.
Well, it was designed for beginners and newcomers, and he is neither. So it was a little bit spirit of the rule kind of thing, whatever you want to call it.
But I mean, even the other guys that did run them, the car, there were 2 other further down in the field, and
they were both in the 4th main.
They ran really well, and I mean that it wasn't like they were getting in the way of the other cars. So it's actually, as Jim says, it's a very interesting comparison.
And well, that was I mentioned it to Marco afterwards, and I go, well, he's in the A group, and they split it into the top 6 qualifiers go into the A group, B group, and C group. You can win the race from any heat. So whoever has the fastest laps overall. But he was in the A group, and I told Marco, some of the guys I don't think liked him being in the A group just because it's a different class, but I kind of did, because I can go around the outside of him if I need to pass it, and if I can, because his car's not going to slide.
Yeah.
And Marco said, you're the only one, and I'm sure Dennis would understand this too, but you said you're the only one that would get that because his car doesn't slide. So I can pass him in places I couldn't pass other people.
True.
So
if you could keep up with him in the turns.
Well, that was the problem. Because I mean, he literally had the second fastest lap in the race overall. And so it was a fun race. Like I said, we had 24 drivers.
Is that car not in your rack behind you then?
Yeah,
it's
there.
Would you say, Wayne? I didn't hear you.
Is the car in the rack in the picture behind you there? The
Yes,
Carrera?
it's the one right. The one on the bottom left, the McLaren is my car.
The
right
cars in the rack are not seated into they're not seated into the mains at the time that photo was taken. They were seated into the qualifying order. So the car that the guy was using is on the 3rd shelf down on the very left-hand side.
Yeah, and my McLaren is right below that.
Yeah.
It's the Fernando Alonso IndyCar IndyCal decal set on a McLaren NSR yellow button. Yeah. So that's kind of all I had. Dennis, I don't know if you wanted to add anything or not. But
no, just again, it was a good race and there was a lot of competition. Interestingly enough, a lot of the new NSR McLarens, they ran very, very well.
Yes, definitely.
There were, I think, 6 or 7 of them and about an equal number of NSR Corvettes. There was one car that I saw that had, I I think it started out as a scale auto with a slotted angle winder pod, but it wasn't that well done and didn't do that great. I was the only one that decided to run a Porsche, and it was not a good choice. But the car was good. I didn't drive it that well, but yeah, it was a fun race. So a couple of NSR AMG Mercedes, or quite a few actually, and one BMW that Rick Jocham rode that worked pretty well.
He didn't race the BMW.
Oh, did he not? The black and white one?
He raced the Corvette. He
Oh,
had
that's
the BMW that he practiced with. Interestingly enough, that Rick Jocham, being an HO racer, was in the B group, and he's driving along, and all of a sudden there's a rider on his lane, and his car stops dead because he'd forgotten that he had an HO controller with an HO fuse, and when he got a rider, he popped the fuse. And fortunately, Dennis had, why Rick didn't have a spare fuse, I don't know, but Dennis had a spare fuse for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a 5 amp fuse that was in his controller.
Yeah, it's
on the power side.
HO controller. When he got a rider, it popped the fuse.
Yeah,
I watched that happen.
Took us a little bit of time to work out what had happened, but we found it. Replaced it with a 15 ampere and away and running again. It was a good race. Lots of fun.
So I will miss the race next month because it's magnet cars, and I don't do magnet cars. It's
I doubt I'll be there either.
Specific magnet car race. The next race at Electric Greens will be for Trans Am, is one class, and the LMP class is basically an open class with open magnets and open motors. So I just don't care to race that kind of thing.
Yeah, Marco was saying he's got a car that will run 4.2 seconds on that track with that condition.
Don't doubt it. Don't doubt it at all.
So that's going to be rocket level stuff.
So you guys won't be there next month. That's May 17th, right?
Yeah.
I was going to try to make that.
It'll be a good race.
It's May 10th. It's the second weekend.
Oh, second weekend. Okay.
And so they're going to run Scale Electrics and Pioneer Trans Am in one class, and then this LMP kind of open class is the other class. It'll be two
From
classes.
the slowest class to the fastest class in the same day. That's
How many minutes were you running each heat?
3
minutes. Wow.
All right, good stuff. And Matt has his hand up. You still there, Matt? Way in the background. Let's get to Jeremy, and then we'll switch to Matt. He's running up. Okay, let's do Jeremy real quick.
Hey, sorry, are we in Club Corner?
We are now, yeah.
Hey, let me share. Let's see. So here in Iowa, we had 9 people show up, which is pretty good for Iowa. One of our drivers came from like 2 hours away, which in Iowa is half the state away.
Yeah.
And one of the nice things that happened is I always bring spare cars for everybody in case we get somebody new that comes in or doesn't have a car. So I bring a spare set. This guy over here, he shows up with another guy and he looks familiar. And it turns out he owns one of the local barbecue restaurants. He's a certified pit master. So I gave him every good car I had. I said, this guy's staying. I'm keeping this guy. So he's interested. So that was just quick thinking on my part. I didn't win as many races this week, but I may have hooked him in. So
You let him win, right?
I know, but I made sure he had the best cars on the track that I had. I wanted to have a good experience with this. And I said,
Jeremy, whose track is that? It's really cool.
A guy named Russ in our club built it a few years ago. It's just he's got a 2-port garage, so yeah, it's not too bad. And then one of the other nice things we did was over here on the right. These guys were all TrackMate guys, or track whatever that one is, TrackMate. And I finally got this guy to switch over to race coordinator, and it's just nice because down here we can have the on deck, we can have the standings here, we can have the actual heat right here. So it's just nice to be able to see everything and get the races just flowed so much smoother than previous versions that we've done. So that was it. Anyway, hopefully next race we'll have some barbecue.
We'll be there.
Let's get some of that barbecue in there. Awesome. Good stuff, Jeremy. And Matt, you are good to go. Unmute yourself.
And my question might go back. It was more about the tires, but you guys can answer this, I think, pretty quickly. Is the purpose of putting lighter fluid on them to make them softer, to increase the grip? I kind of got in the conversation later. And most importantly, you guys are awesome. Cheers to you all. Thanks for doing what you do.
Dennis, you want to take that one? Basically, yeah.
Yeah, the purpose of the lighter fluid is, yes, it's to soften the tire to ensure that it cleans up properly, that you get all the little balls of rubber off the surface of the tire as you're grinding it. I don't tend to use it until right at the end when you're polishing the tire, more than when you're grinding it. When you're trying to take off rubber to get the tire round, it doesn't really help you to have the lighter fluid on there, because it lubricates everything too much, and you either want to be grinding dry if you can control the temperature, or with water or something like that. So it's a final prep for me,
also
rather than something right from the beginning.
Is anybody using lighter fluid like pre-race or anything? I normally am, like, once the tires are good, I typically just take your sticky lint roller and have at it.
That again depends on the track. I mean, if you've got a new set of tires that have just been ground and you haven't run them, and you run them on the track and you clean them on tape, that's fine. But after a while, even cleaning them with the tape, they tend to the surface will oxidize a little, or it will pick up stuff that doesn't come off on the tape, and then it's a good idea to re-clean them with lighter fluid.
I put a little lighter fluid on. Sorry. I made from a scale electric case, and then a little bit of Velcro, the soft side of Velcro. And then I put a few drops here. I put my car on it, and that way it just kind of cleans the tires between each race. That's a quick, easy way to do it.
And so my application would be Scale Electric's cars on Scale Electric track, maybe upgrade the tires, but if not, more or less for somebody coming over to have a better experience, I can show them, hey, this is the best way to go about it.
Yeah. And I think, that's good. Clean them with lighter fluid. You don't have to do it every time, but it does help. You'll find once you clean them that they're quite sticky.
Mostly.
And if the track isn't clean, all that it's going to do is just pick up the dirt that's on the track. So be careful of that. And sometimes, you'll clean the tires with lighter fluid, put the car on the track, run it a lap or two, and then run it over the sticky pad again to get rid of whatever it's picked up. And then they'll probably be at their best.
Very good. Thank you. You guys can move on. I think I jumped in late. Sorry.
That's fine. One of the things that I did for my track, at my driver stations, I have a place for the controller, and I have a place to hook up, plug your controller in. But I also have a slot with power to some copper tape. And just behind that, I put I made little 3D printed pans. But before that, I just put some ShamWow or some chamois just back where the rear tires would go, and I would just dampen that with regular water, and I would just leave that at each driver station. And when somebody wants to clean their tires, they just take the car off the track. There's a little power switch to power on the slot, so that can be left off if you want. And then you just put the car on, buzz the tires on the damp chamois, and that it's just water. So it basically, because it's a chamois, it's kind of very mildly abrasive. So most of the stuff that can come off with water and a little bit of mild abrasion come off onto the chamois, and then you put your car back on the track and do a little spin out because the tires are still a little damp, but then your car is on its way again. And this is really convenient at the beginning of the race night, because no matter how much you vacuum or wipe a track, the tires will still pick up other stuff. And so as you're driving the cars around for the first several laps, first maybe 20 or 30 or 50 laps, they'll pick up stuff, and then you just buzz them on your damp, paper towel, chamois, or whatever, put them on the track and keep going around. And eventually, after everybody's done practicing, then the track is pretty much race ready, because everybody practicing has their tires have picked up any residual dust that happened to fall on the track since the last time you raced, and it didn't get picked up by the vacuum or whatever. And this is what I do with stock tires, so Scalextric, Carrera, etc., stock rubber. The only time I put any chemicals onto those types of tires is when it's just not a good tire, and I feel like giving them a little bit of oil will help. And then I'll put some oil on and let it soak in just to soften it. And the lighter fluid does the same thing in just kind of a quick way, but it doesn't last very long. So for cleaning regular stock tires, just for a casual racing, just a quick buzz on a damp chamois or paper towel or something like that works pretty good.
The best way to race a car is drive in a straight line. Don't go from left to right, and drive carefully, and don't pick up shit.
Yep, because most of the stuff is going to be on the outside of the
come
tire.
on, now you're spoiling all our fun, man. You can't do that. Sideways is fun.
But it's not quick.
I didn't say it was quick, but it's fun.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you can kick someone out.
What are you showing off, Alan? Oh, you just turn the tape back on itself?
Yeah, this is typical tire prep for
Is there
rubber
a murder case?
This is, yeah, it's hazard tape, that's what it is. And hazard tape's perfect because it doesn't rip the tires to pieces, but it picks all the rubbish up. And you can just run the tires like this, just run them and run them and run them, tape them and tape them and tape them. It doesn't take much, just tape them, couple of laps, tape, away you go, more tape. And this rips all the graining out of the tires. Very quick to do this, as you plug the car in, you do your test laps, you do another one of these before you do, and even that's a clean tire, and you can see at the bottom here there's some stuff coming off here. And
mostly rubber marbles, yeah.
It's not putting glue onto the tires, it's not increasing the grip of the tires, it's just removing the graining, and that's typical prep in the UK for rubber tires. Does not work for urethane. Do not take urethane. That's an absolute disaster of a plan, I think.
And if you want to do it in a race, you get a straight one. So you pick your car, 1, 2, and on the track again.
Yeah,
perfect. I like that. Yeah.
I've made some little paddles, which are just pieces of little bits of Lexan or acrylic sheet, and then I wrap masking tape around the wrong way around so that the sticky's on the outside. And the same thing, you can pull the car across the tape and go. And it's nice because it's a flat surface. You don't.
We should all just send Matt our own version and have him do a comparison. We'll declare a winner then.
Has anyone tried a lint roller?
And he has to give a report. Yeah, his report.
Oh, yeah, we use lint rollers all the time. Greg's got them hanging on his track there. You could see them.
Yeah. Every station has access to a lint roller. So there's a lint roller between every 2 stations so that you just grab one and do that. Basically,
I thought that was because of the dog fur. Sorry.
I mean, that's because of the dog fur.
I did have a question.
Could get anywhere.
Were you using track power, or did you have a separate power supply for your station power?
I have a separate power supply for that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Alan, he doesn't use that tape on urethanes. What do you use on urethane, Alan, or do you even race with urethane?
Yeah, I do race with urethanes, and I have different fluids. Actually, acetone works quite well, or anything like that. But the real thing, Mr. Muscle or Windoline, which are basically kitchen cleaners or anything like that. Anything. I do use an industrial degreaser myself. I use a spray industrial degreaser, and I run it around the tires with a cotton bud. But I can't show you. I don't want to show you what it is, and I don't want to demonstrate this because over the last year I've had certain pod failures in the cars and chassis failures. I think what's happening is the degreaser is getting onto the plastic in the car, and it's weakening and destroying the car. So I feel comfortable to use it because I'm careful with it. But I know other people are using it, but I don't think they're really seeing yet the damage they're using by spraying this stuff, and it's spraying inside the car. I do think that the use of these industrial degreasers it's a good idea because unlike Windoline, these things evaporate really quickly, which means that between races, you can just immediately just get back, bit on the cotton bud, clean around the tire, and it's good. And you can put it on the track almost straight away because it dries. But I do think there's a hazard to there's a hazard to the car parts. And if you put a car on the track that's wet, there could be a hazard to the track itself. So,
if it's a hazard for your car, what do you think what it does with your nose?
You don't sniff it. What kind of drug are you using?
Alan uses an N95 mask.
I don't think Alan spends his time kissing the car either.
I think you only have to worry if your nose is made of plastic.
That's why they say don't lick the tires, right?
All right, gentlemen.
We survived wintergreen.
Big Den had his hand up. Do you want to do a quick club corner, Big Den?
No, just quickly to say that NSR, there's going to be some Australian NSR championships in West Australia in September. So I might use that as an excuse to go on holidays. Let's see how things pan out. But anything else I had for Club Corner we'll keep till last week, till next week, yeah.
All right.
And perhaps when you're talking about that's maybe how that little Merv Marusa looked like he was sniffing one of those compounds and he deformed. So, okay, now
All right, thanks, Big Den. And David is waving his hand. You're going to need to unmute yourself, sir. You need to unmute yourself.
All right.
There you go.
There he is. You can see my neural knob is not as big as yours, Greg. And I probably get. We're not going there.
Yeah. Is that from the Tire True?
Yeah,
the professor?
Listen to the new guy cracking jokes.
Yeah, I actually thought about that. I thought because when I was doing the reciprocator for Russ's Professor Motor one, I'm like, that knob is really small. It's actually kind of hard to turn. I was thinking of designing a 3D printed one that could go on top of that. Yeah. And then I could even do numbers and stuff around.
Just remember, David, it's not what you have, it's how you use it.
just enjoy the race, right?
Greg, I think
All
it's
right.
time that
we're running to the end of 2 hours.
I can defeat that. That's no problem. But some of these tires, and I've only experimented with truing just a little bit. I'm not anywhere near gluing yet. But
don't true unless you glue.
Yeah.
No, there's no point to truing without gluing.
Well, sure. I mean, I can get a better grip. I mean, but remember, I've been racing magnets too.
Well, there's no point in gluing the tires on unless the grip on the track requires it, really.
Right. Well,
I guess that's a good point.
My question is, some of these tires, and I don't know whether you're allowed to say brands on here, but I mean, they so finished so well that I don't think I could get it to that. Can I say the names or no?
Of course, we're not. This is people.
Quick slicks and super tires, the CB57s and the 1407 super tires are just, I mean, those look, can I get?
They're silicone, right?
Yeah, but those are silicone, that's why.
That's not rubber.
No, the 1407s, you can get either. I've been getting your.
No, those are silicone only.
You might be getting a yellow dog.
The 1407s, if it's just the 1407, it's silicone. If it's a 1407Y, then it's urethane. But neither of them are rubber.
Right.
And a lot of what we've been talking about today has been as it refers to rubber tires.
Yeah.
And if you're using super tires, you best get them now because they probably won't be available in the future.
I heard that. Yeah.
Why? What's going on with super tires?
The guy who made them died.
Oh.
Nick passed away, what, 2 or 3 months ago?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's sad.
I thought somebody took that over, though. I thought somebody was talking about they're taking that over.
I think his wife and his son are probably holding the fort right now, but whether it's going somewhere else, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Matt, did you have a last minute thing before I hit the stop on the record button? No, he's good. All right. We're going to end the recording. So come and enjoy a live Zoom chat, blah, blah, blah. Everybody wave bye. We're going to click the stop. Bye now.